Hello there. This is a teaching on high and low point method of splitting semi-variable costs. You must be aware by now, semi-variable costs are costs that have an element of fixed cost and an element of variable cost. That implies to me if fixed cost is cost that does not change no matter the activity level you are delivering at, it will then mean that where the cost is changing, that cost that is changing is purely because of the variable cost that is changing. The variable cost changes as your activity level changes, but the fixed cost does not change as your activity level changes, and we're talking about the total costs here. If and where we agree with that, it then also implies that if the variable cost is what is moving, the additional units you produced has caused us to incur additional variable cost. So with that, I can extrapolate the additional units you made and the additional cost you incurred, which I will associate purely to variable cost. And with that, I can then deduce my variable cost per unit. We will look at an exercise in dealing with that. We have here a table that tells me 1,800 units and at a total cost of 16,480 and 3,150 units at a total cost of 24,715. It means that the additional cost that we have incurred which is 24,715 minus 16,480 has led me to having additional units. With which I can then calculate my variable cost per unit. So I'm just getting the difference in both situations, and my variable cost per unit will then be the total difference in cost divided by the difference in units. The additional units that you made cost us an additional £8,235. The cost that is moving is a variable cost. The fixed cost does not move. So the additional cost is purely variable cost, and that additional cost has made us make 1,350 units. That means that the cost per unit for variable cost is £6.10p. With that, I can extrapolate again my fixed cost. So I want to find my total variable cost, which will then be my £6.10p at any of the activity levels, whether the low point or the high point. So I can plug that into the low point as I'm doing now. That will give me a total variable cost of 10,980. So my total fixed cost will be the difference in cost. We had 16,480 minus what you have calculated now as your total variable cost at the same activity level, the low point. And that will give me fixed cost of 5,500. And that stands as my fixed cost, and it will be the same amount of fixed cost at each of the activity levels, which I'm now throwing straight into my table. I then have to calculate my variable cost at each of the activity levels, and for that I need to do £6.10p times 2,100, and that gives me 12,810. I then plug that with the fixed cost together to give me my total cost at the 2,100 units of activity. I will do the same thing across all of the activity levels. £6.10p, which is my variable cost per unit, times 2,600 units. So I have 15,860, which I will add to £5,500, and that will give me 21,360. We're doing exactly the same thing again at 2,900 units of activity. That will give you 17,690, and you add that to 5,500 to give you the total cost at 2,900 units of activity. So high and low point, you pick the high and you pick the low, you get the difference between the cost and the units, and then you divide the cost by the unit, and that will give me the variable cost per unit. With that, I can plug that variable cost per unit at the high point or at the low point to find total variable cost of the high or the low point activity level. If I stick to high point, I will use the high point total cost minus the total variable cost which you've calculated at the high point. In this case, I have used the low point. So I have stuck with 1,800 units times £6.10p. That will give me the total variable cost. I deduct that from the total cost you have of 16,480 to give me the total fixed cost. I hope this has been useful. The rest of it is practice and study ongoing. Please follow us on Facebook, like us on all the social media platforms, connect with us, and let's work together. Why not? Keep learning, keep understanding, and we hope you will continue to have success. I hope it's been useful. The rest of it is carry on studying. Adios.